Hello, welcome back. So today we are gonna start looking into Flexbox. So before we start with that, let's go back to this is where we are at, and now let's start with our nav on order list. We did a little hack, a little trick. We did the LI items to be with a display of inline block. So let me delete this because we are gonna do this with using Flexbox, which is the best way to do it because it has more flexibility, has more variants, has more ways to customize it. So let's start on the nav bar. So you know what? Let me delete the whole nav for now. So we have it, and on the anchor tags, I'm gonna delete the margin for now. So we just have specified the anchor tags themselves with the color and no text decoration, but nothing about the layout. So this is where I want it to be Flexbox. So let's start. Let's write that in. So let's look at our index and notice our unordered list that lives inside our nav. The unordered list is like a container where the LIs live inside. So we are gonna make this UL our flex container so we can customize how these LIs look. So nav unordered list, and here's the main display flex, and immediately when I do that, these ones go side by side. So I do not know why the text decoration list, I need this list style to be none, so we get rid of the dots, and then padding 0 and margin 0 for now. So right now, just with adding this flex, it places them side by side. So now we can have our nav list items, and there is where we wanna specify some padding top and bottom and 4 pixels left and right. So we're left where we were at, right? But now it's using the proper tool, the display flex, because with the display flex we can specify the spacing between, and if you want it on the right and on the left. So this is the modern way to do it. So just to give you an example, let's search for Flexbox cheat sheet, and then the first thing comes out, and download, I don't know, flex wrap, flex flow, and then this is one, for example, very simple one, justify content. So justify content and a bunch of options, left, right, center. So for example, justify content and then center and first flex and flex start space around, space between. So let's end, for example, and here moves them to the right. Let's do another example. Let's do, for example, start. It's where it's it, I believe. Space between, space evenly. For example, space between stretches them all the way and evenly distributes the space. But if we shrinks this part, and if we grow it, and then if there is a first, why did it center? Now it centers it. Okay, so those are examples. I'm gonna leave it like this for now. So that was the index used as a flex container, and with the list item as the items inside the flex container. So now let's use our footer as an example. So because sometimes the footer also, we place the navigational links also in the footer, so when people scroll all the way down, we have them here also. But just as an example of doing that, we'll use the footer as another example of using Flexbox. So let me just, the footer, let's add another, let's change it completely. Let's start with, on the footer, let's change this to whispering wind, and then let's add the unordered list again, and then finally the copy. So now we have whispering wind, home menu, about, and contact. But this unordered list is not inside the nav bar. That's why it's not affected by the flex we already specified. Let me also get rid of this class active for now. And let's add class names to this paragraph. Class of footer brand, and on our order list here in the footer, we're gonna name it footer nav, so we can access it. All right, so now let's make this footer container to be a flex item. So let's come here, and before we start with these dot ones, let's here place our footer, and then display flex. So it placed them. Oops. Notice what it did. The default behavior is it placed everything side by side. But in this case, that's not how we want it. So Flexbox gives us that option. Let me make this. So here, side by side and all the way to the left. And this is not how we want it, right? So let's fix that. So where is our footer? Here. Let me make this a bit bigger. So now the key value pair is named like this, flex direction. And now if we specify row, it's what we already have. So now it's gonna be column. And now we are back to where we were before. But now we have more options. So now, for example, align items center and gap of 10 pixels. It did no change. Padding of 30 pixels, 20 pixel. Background color var color var. So we're switching things up. We're doing the background, the text color, and the text color, the background color. Just for now. Let's keep working on this because right now it's very ugly. So even though right now it's very ugly, let's keep going. So let's change the let's go with this. Let's go with dot footer brand. This is just, let's go with Francis and then our serif, just to change, to be consistent with the name of the coffee shop. And then font size, let's make it rem. And that's margin of 0. Yeah, let's start making a bit smaller. And notice I introduced this. Now instead of pixels, I did rem, which stands for root root element, I guess. Well, it's a unit of measure that represents the font size of the root element of the whole web page. So 1.2 rems means a little bit bigger than the normal text. You figure it out. Okay, now the important part. So we have a footer that is a display flex that we put direction as the column. So that means everything inside the flex will be one on top of each other. But then we can make the one in the middle itself be a flex and have the items inside that be in a row. Was that simple enough? I don't know. Let's do the example. So footer nav, no, not parentheses, curly brackets, and then this itself be a display flex. There, now our list items inside this container are in a row, which is the default. So we also need the decoration to be none, like we did list style none, right? So we don't see those dots. And then padding of 0 pixels, margin 0 pixels, and then gap of 20 pixels. So that's better. Is that better? A little bit, no? So now the text color, because right now these are listening to the A's we did here, which were for another, for the about page. What's going on here? We need to change all the footers. Where was it on our contact? Yes, for this one was that color, for this anchor. All our footers are missing. We will need to copy paste. So, but now let's make these anchors different. So where were we? Footer nav, and then let's do the A's, but the A's that are inside dot footer nav, and the A's inside our footer nav will have a color of one of our variables, the same. Let's move the, it already has a text decoration of none. So this is redundant. Let's leave it anyways. And then let's do this. Footer nav anchor, but only when we are hovering. There's a whole bunch of this hover. So on the anchor tags, when we are hovering over them of the footer nav, let's do a text decoration of underline. Okay, so what does this do? When we hover, it underlines it only when we hover on top of the anchor tag. And now we have not done anything to, let's try something. Footer, the paragraphs inside the footer, let's do a margin of 0 to make it a little bit more compact. And then let's do a font size of 0.85 rems. Opacity of, so a little tiny touch of transparency. Is that nice? So is this better? So this top and bottom of 30 pixels of the padding on the footer itself, I think it's way too big. Is that better? I think it is, no? Yeah, let's leave it a bit more compact. So now let's copy paste our footer on all of our pages. So let me close this, index, and then footer, control copy, and then in our about, control paste, and our contact, paste on our menu, paste. So now this is a nice example of how to do this, because a couple of important concepts. Here we have a Flexbox. Let me come back to the index. So back to my thought. Here we have a flex. This footer is a container, a Flexbox container, but with the column direction. So these three things are one inside of another. And then this unordered list is itself a container with these li items in the row direction. So does that make any sense? And maybe it'll help if I maximize this, even though like this it looks very ugly. But let me right click, inspect, and now if we look at the, if we click here, and so this selects our footer, and here if we click this arrow to expand, now here it has the little flex, and then so for this flex, these three items, right? If we flex, we click here, it kind of like displays our flex item one on top of the other, because it's specified that it's gonna be a flex duration, it's gonna be column. There's a whole bunch of things to play around in here. And then the 1, 2, 3 things inside this footer, and the unordered list has also this little flex thing. And if we click, we can see here the row specified with the gap we specified, right? I don't know. You play around with this. Comment how it goes. So let me get this back to how it was. So that's Flexbox. Display equals flex. This display equals flex. Turning a container's children into a row or column, plus align items, gap, flex direction, giving us control over spacing and alignment. So next video, we will be covering a similar concept to Flexbox, which is a grid, CSS grid, which handles two-dimensional layouts with rows and columns at the same time. So this is how we are gonna keep building up on this website. Hope you are enjoying these videos. So that will be it for this one. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.